concert, and companion student book. Go on a virtual journey to learn what makes music music, with music by William Grant Still, Beethoven, Brahms, and more. Access the free video and student book with password 1932 at ncsymphony.org/virtual.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum on July 4th, the Independence Day. Being independent is an important and good thing. We're going to have some guests later. We're going to have some chats. We're going to have a holiday morning. I mean, what are you doing on this federal holiday? Are you visiting the Big Talker website? You should. BigTalker.live. Download the app for Android and iOS devices. You'll love it. It's a way of life. Ha! Welcome back to the Asylum on July 4th, Independence Day. A little wore out from a weekend of gigging. Which, you know, when you're going to have a federal holiday, it's a real letdown to have it on like Monday or Tuesday, right? Because while it is, you get the day off, you can't really go out and, you know, party like it's 1999 tonight, right? Because you got to get up tomorrow and do the work thing. And some of us poor bastards got to wake up at 6 and do the morning thing anyway. Holiday be damned. So yeah, Holiday played some gigs. It was a lot of fun. Played a gig at Bald Head Island last night, and on the way home, we inadvertently ran across a news story. Wait, run that again? Yep. The chaos that is Bald Head Island Transportation Ferry System Company thing, whatever. Poor bastards were just completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of vacationers, and I'm not even sure what the other terms would be for the slackoids like myself that were on the island to enjoy a low-country shrimp boil, or as they pronounce it, a bowl. I've never heard of it. I thought of a bowl. I thought that's what, you know, ruined cotton plants was a bowl. But anyway, on the way home, late, trying to figure out why I think we were on 133 in Brunswick County coming back from the Deep Point Marina. And we saw lots of blinky light. Usually, on a holiday weekend, blinky lights are not a good thing. In this case, blinky lights meant something else. And to quote my friend Donna Gregory, whose recording I am waiting on, a crash in Brunswick County last night involved 2 cars and a 500-pound bear. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the North Carolina Highway Patrol says it happened at about 10:30 last night on River Road near Brunswick. Near Winnebago in Brunswick. According to investigators, 2 cars were involved, no people were hurt, but the bear died on the scene. The road is now open. It was not pretty. Have you ever seen a 500-pound black bear? It is not small. Have you ever seen a 500-pound black bear get in a fight with a couple of cars? It's not pretty. The only people to survive were the people inside the cars. The cars and the bear were all hauled away. Yep, we saw the second car it was already hoisted up on the flatbed and being hauled away. Even as we're sitting there and they're trying to like figure out what they're going to do with a dead 500-pound bear. Most people would say give it a license and let it drive a truck. But no, not in this case. That just did not go well. So yeah, driving home, you hit a bear, it'll mess up your whole day. Yep. Guaranteed. And it was really cool to see a lot of cats. Like, normally when we take a ferry over to the island, I would say 1 out of every 3 or 4 trips, we might run into another musician or group of musicians that'll be on the island. There was no less than 4 yesterday, some of which were in better moods than others. Mine got a little frustrating at the end. The Bald Head Island Transportation Ferry people decided that my gear just wasn't important, and they just threw it on the ground all upside down, and it's like, yeah, we're just come on, man. I was like, look, dude, I don't want to unload this twice, all right? Just leave it in the dolly. The truck will be here. I'll take everything directly from the dolly to the truck. No. I now have to take everything off the dolly, set it on the ground, and then pick it up again, and then put it in the truck. And I'm like, dude, really? Just so you can go smoke dope in your car on break? I get it. Right? But the impetus of your job is to provide a service for me. Right? My passenger fare is what pays your salary. So you are technically working for me. So just stand down, don't touch my crap, all right? Leave it alone. You can wait the extra 6 minutes. Just like I had to wait the extra 45 minutes for a boat to come and get me. So apparently our children have not been taught well. Your parents should be ashamed of what they have raised. I mean, 3 years ago, they had a different, 2 years ago, 3, might be, had a much different manager. And things ran smooth. Never met, well, once. But that wasn't his fault. That was the leaving the island, coming back to the mainland. Somebody forgot to roll our bucket with all of our gear on there. Oh, was that yours? So yeah, if ever you were curious, I will answer this question for you now. There is absolutely nothing to do at Deep Point Marina at 10 o'clock at night. Nothing. Even your cell phone is going to laugh at you. Why are you here? You just be embarrassed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick news break here in a moment. And when we come back, we're going to have some fantastical guests with hopefully stories of outrageous holiday antics. And yes, I'm running a little slow because I'm not filled up on coffee yet, so don't go nowhere. It's the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. We'll be right back after all of these nifty, fun, and wonderful messages from your friends right here at the Big Talker. Don't go nowhere.
Happy 4th of July, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Turning a bit unsettled later this afternoon as our high temperatures climb into the upper 80s to the low 90s away from the coast. Middle 80s along the immediate coastline with a moderate risk for rip currents for the eastern and those southern facing beaches, so allow for caution if you're headed out to the beaches today. But as we head into the afternoon hours, that'll be our best chance to see scattered showers and thunderstorms developing with heavy downpours and lightning expected. As we head into the late evening hours, just in time for the firework displays, expecting dry time as our temperatures drop down to the middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
Get copies of the invoices.
Stand by. There it is. Welcome back to the Asylum. I got a lot of buttons to push here. Hang on, there we go. All right. And as promised, I told you we would have some guests, so I need to say welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. Let's see, I need to use that and that to make sure that my friend Bill Moore joins us. How are you doing, sir, down in Brunswick County? Not far from the... Yeah? And what did you do for the holidays so far?
Well, the wife is still not feeling great, so I'm kind of home wife sitting.
Oh, lots of like pudding pops or orange juice. What are you doing?
Lots of whatever she wants me to cook her, and running errands this way and whatever else, and trying to keep the house in some sort of semblance of neat, which will never happen compared to her. But yeah, the important thing is that she's getting better, and that's what counts.
That is a huge step forward.
Yep. So, yes, as soon as she starts telling me about certain things that needs to get done, I know she's better.
When your honey-do list gets longer, you know she's feeling better.
Yep. And she's being a little more critical of everything else. I've gone from you're a great husband to we need to get some things done.
That's almost unfair. I mean,
if she's listening, a lot of trouble.
I mean, I can appreciate, like, once you're laid up and you're now observing things from a distance, right? Because you're not walking over the clothes that are left in the middle of the room. You're actually, like, laying in the bed in the room with the clothes laid around. So at some point, you can look at the floor and go, hey, somebody needs to pick that up. The problem is there's only one person left standing.
Well, that's not even the problem because she likes to sit in the living room.
Oh, well, no clothes in the living room then.
No, but that gives you a straight shot to look at the kitchen.
And that's why you're using paper plates this week.
Well, yeah, that's what we try to do as much as possible. But someone doesn't like paper plates either. So.
And we use the paper plates as fire starters to keep us warm because these summer nights are just brutal.
Well, actually, I use them to save energy because I don't have to run the dishwasher then. And I'm actually being a good steward of our nation and our earth.
And it helps, like, if you flip the plate over before you throw it away, you can use it as a notepad.
Yeah,
so that way, you're recycling and reusing before you dispose.
See, I usually get in trouble because when she'll tell me, you got to do laundry, I said, wait a minute, no, I can get 4 days of a pair of underwear, turn them around, flip them in, do it again. But,
Yeah.
That go over real well. But it is what it is. I do love her dearly. But it's 4th of July has been a rainy day for, they've wiped out a lot of good stuff this weekend so far.
I was wondering about watching fireworks in the rain. My gig Saturday night was quite that experience. It's like you could run out, catch a couple of fireworks, run back in, let the rain go by, run back out, 5 more fireworks, run back in.
Well,
it was like a Tom and Jerry episode.
Even Southport canceled all their events on Saturday.
Oh, man, that's a bummer.
Because we had that, we had the recommendation of a tropical storm coming in the area. which is basically the beach areas. But the Southport's on the beach, so on the water. So
Oh,
they did
that's
have
a shame.
to out there Saturday. So hopefully they'll get some of them back in today, or people aren't too disappointed with what they missed.
Man. So what are your reflections on this holiday day? I figured this would be, I mean, there's a lot of the optics, a lot of the psychology of, I remember in 1976, there was a huge celebration. I was at the Balloon Fiesta, and they were launching red, white, and blue balloons, and Pepsi was giving stuff away with the Pepsi generation, and all kinds of red, white, and blue hats and shirts and flags and things, and now it's a little bit more dour.
Well, beside from the fact that that was the 200th anniversary, which is a big number, that makes it a little bit more special. I mean, I guess the next time we have special will be in 26 when we have our 250th anniversary.
So, okay, never mind. To find things to celebrate in this country is not difficult. Every month we have some reason to drink ourselves into oblivion.
Yes, even whether it makes sense or not. There's
Right.
National Dog Week or this, or it's I didn't beat my wife month, and I'll be in trouble for that one someplace. But
only in Taliban controlled areas.
But they just have, it's National this, it's Bird Week, it's Dog Week. Pick one. There's something going on every week that we have to celebrate, or it's, sometimes it's as simple as it's Monday. Let's celebrate.
Right. It's like most adults at this point, at least some of the women that I've met, they've come to terms with the whole thing since the pandemic that they no longer require any excuse, really, for day drinking. It's Tuesday.
It's almost expected. Like my favorite thing is I'm not a big drinker, and my reaction to people who get very upset when I don't drink with them is, I don't mind if you do. Why do you mind if I don't?
Yeah, I'm not interfering with yours, but your breath is interfering with mine.
Yeah, but it's just interesting with some of the stuff that they do. A couple little things about 4th of July that many people don't know. The Declaration of Independence was actually written on July 2nd, but it wasn't ratified until the 4th. So that's why we celebrate the 4th. As states started, or colonies started kicking in and saying they'll join it. The other thing that's even more interesting is, even though it was ratified and went into effect that day, the Declaration of Independence with the big scrolling letters and the names written in big letters was actually not signed until the beginning of August.
Huh. So that whole
actually,
time we were sort of like an illegitimate government?
Well, no, they all agreed. They all voted on it, and they all did. But the copy that became famous is the one that was actually, if you will, recently and made famous. And actually, I think it was the 2nd of August that went down. So that's an interesting little tidbit that many people don't know. But, as I also tell people, when you celebrate the 4th, you need to do two things. You need to, first of all, remind kids and grandkids what the purpose of the 4th is and what it's all about. It's not just a party. It's not just fireworks. It's not just hot dogs and hamburgers. It's remembering a bunch of colonists who took a chance taking on the most powerful nation in the world at that time, Great Britain, and fought for their freedom, which took a lot of guts. And it was a country that, very much like ours in many ways, it says never changed. It was pretty much split in half, 50-50. 50 were for the revolution, 50 were what they called Tories, or they stayed with the British government. So it was never 100% doing this battle. But they managed to win. And I also remind people who are, as I am, a Second Amendment fan, that if it wasn't for an armed citizenry, this revolution would have never happened.
True that then. It's a little different now. I still have trouble with, like, what is it we are actually revolting against with the amount of firepower we're bringing to the streets on a daily basis. I'm not the smartest kid in the world, so I struggle with some of these understandings.
Well, it's not it's a matter now of, as someone said before, some of the gun control laws that they're trying to pass, and believe me, I don't think that people with real issues should have the ability to have guns. The problem is even the red flag laws that were just passed, which are being criticized heavily. The problem with it is not so much the red flag law, it's the fact that our government in general has politicized everything. So the red flag law basically says that if you're upset with me, you can go to the police and say Bill Moore is a danger and shouldn't have guns, and they have the power to come over and confiscate my guns without due process. So that's the problem, and you give people the right to just make a statement, true or false, and they react to it, and it also gives government the right to dream up whatever they want to do. And if you think about it, and you look at it long term, I mean, look, they weaponized the IRS, they weaponized the FBI at this point. They're after select people, they're not after everybody. Back in 2010. The IRS was only auditing conservative groups and nobody else. So with the government's movement and trend toward weaponizing any power they give them, you give people the right to just simply take away your weapons without due process. You're going to disarm the country, and I have a problem with that.
Well, they've also done that with parental rights and family. There's been a number of issues. The part that still gets me, even after all the debates over the past 40 years since I was made any sort of aware of it, is that all of the legislation and proposals are all aimed at normal people that should be allowed to have guns. I don't know if that makes sense. It's the people that shouldn't have guns are the ones we should be looking at. I mean, the criminal element is 80% of that.
They're not applying for permits, and they're not getting concealed carries.
They're not dealing with serial numbers.
No, they're just dealing with getting what they want and doing what they want with them. But it's almost like saying, if we can ban fire extinguishers, we won't have any more fires.
Now, the problem with some of the issues here is that we're not... what's the word I'm looking for? Following through on some of the actions. Like, we already have had a number of criminals that have been through the system. And then the next story you read, they have a gun out in the normal public. So why were they not in jail either longer? Why is there not more oversight where we can walk in at any time? You're supposed to be able to when you're on probation, right? To say we want to inspect everything about your life, and if there is a gun anywhere in here, you're going away for 20 more years until you learn not to play with the guns and stop being a criminal.
Yeah, well, the probation officers have the right to do an inspection 24/7, and they have the right to, by their word, revoke your parole, and you're back in jail in a snap. The problem when you start looking at weapons and dealing with it is the government doesn't even know what they're talking about most of the time. They talk about the AR-15 as an assault weapon. Well,
the Armalite?
Yeah. It's an assault weapon. Well, guess what? It's a semi-automatic. Now, the other problem comes, you can go online and buy the parts you need and have them shipped to your house to make it full automatic. That's true.
Oh, yeah. But I have a pair of boots. I bear a pair of, they're pigskin cowboy boots. They're absolutely comfortable. They're absolutely wonderful. However, I have been attacked in public that they are assault boots because the tip of my boot actually points. Had it been a square, it would be a non-assault boot. But apparently...
You put a little metal cap on it, you could really make them happy.
I think that may have been what caught his attention is the little... metal, it's adorned quite well and etched or whatever they call it. It's been artisaned or whatever the term is. I can't. Obviously, no coffee this morning. But yeah, they attacked my boots, and I'm like, what? What's next? Crocs? If you wear the Crocs with the strap forward, is that the attack mode and in assault mode, or?
Look, anything can be made an assault weapon. I mean, my fork can be an assault weapon. It's a matter of intent. You go back even 50, 60 years, we've always had weapons. We didn't have school shootings. So what's changed?
We used to have weapons at the school.
Yeah.
In New Mexico, being a desert, it was not uncommon to have, 2 or 3 rifles in the back of your dad's truck that you took to school that morning. Nobody broke into your truck to steal your guns.
Yep. When I was in Edenton as a principal in North Carolina for a while, the year I arrived, and it was coincidental, nothing I had done, I made the decision. Up till that year, the kids were allowed to park their trucks with all their rifles and shotguns mounted in the back of the truck. It was just the way it was. And nobody complained, nobody did anything about it. And then all of a sudden it became a problem. And don't understand why, because if you're law-abiding, you don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the little extra check on 18 to 21-year-olds for background checks. I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, the only thing that they passed now that really, really makes me concerned is the red flag laws, because I just think it's an ability to use it for other than its intended purposes.
Maybe we should use it for other than its intended purposes, because these red flag laws would certainly stack up all of our mental hospitals in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, but the problem with this, they don't have to prove you're mental. They just have to prove that someone says you're dangerous. And they show up, Bill Moore's got a bad temper. He's got half a dozen pistols in his house. He's a danger to the community. So they come over and they take the weapons, and then somewhere down the road, they may or may not schedule a hearing. But in the meantime, they've already confiscated without due process everything I own, or all weapons that I own, or ammunition, or whatever else.
But they still won't put you in a 72-hour MIW or do anything actually important.
Don't necessarily have to. It's just that I have a big temper and I'm dangerous.
But that's completely opposite to most other assessment-based situations like mental health or crisis intervention or hostage negotiation, to go even further, that there's usually some sort of recourse and a path. But you're saying in this situation, it's just a free-for-all almost.
Well, the problem here is, if someone thinks you're mental, that they will take you for a 72-hour evaluation, and they will have a hearing to decide whether you need to, whether you have to be committed or whether you go out on your own. In this case, you're guilty till proven innocent. I'm coming, I am taking your weapons. And unfortunately, there was a case, and I think it was about a year ago, where they tried to do this red flag law with, guy was in his early 60s, and he resented it, ended up getting in a contest with the police officers, and they shot him. So, the bottom line was it wouldn't have happened if they didn't come for his weapons.
Okay.
Now, whether he's stable, I don't have that information. I do know that he resented them coming for their weapons, and he refused to turn it over, and he got into a contest with the police officers. And what happened beyond that, the bottom line is he was killed. So I don't think that's appropriate at any time.
Yeah, it just went sideways really quick.
Yep.
Especially if everybody's already hyped up and on edge, and then somebody just has to throw one more match on that conflagration.
And you know who I feel bad for with all this is the police that have to enforce it.
They're the ones that have to go in and get this.
Yeah, they have to go in. The police or the sheriff's department have to go in. They have to enforce the law. So whatever, if someone gives them an order to do X, Y, and Z, they have no choice. They have to go do it, whether they agree with it or not. And I'm glad they do follow the law, but I feel bad for them being put in situations that were avoidable, especially when a tragedy happens. You have to shoot somebody, even if it's to protect your life. You're never going to forget that the rest of your life. You took a life. Good, bad, or indifferent, you took a life.
And the first one, these are definitely not stories that help my lack of coffee situation at the moment.
You see that?
It's hard to wrap your head around such heavy morally based puzzles, if you will, that I just don't have the depth of cycle right now to process it. I'm still like, where's my news read?
Well, guess what? Let's switch to some other good stuff I can talk about then.
Please, because I'm taxed.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit to everybody listening about the fact that the General Assembly just passed a new budget coming up for 22-23.
Wait, are you saying North Carolina has finally passed a budget after, 6 years?
Well, actually, the governor signed it last year when he found out that there were enough Democrats crossing over that they could override him. So he signed it. And he's supposed to be signing this one, too, I think, for the same reasons. So but it's a 29.9 million budget, which has a 7.2% increase over the current year's budget. It allows for increases where necessary. It addresses a lot of issues, and it does not raise taxes. It does not go near raising anybody's taxes. So credit goes to the General Assembly for this kind of work. Now, what does it include? Well, teachers will get an average of a 4.2% raise. Depending on steps, it might be a little higher. But that's a good thing for them because we know
that's long overdue.
Yeah, they're long overdue, and they deserve more money than they're being paid, and there's no argument there. They got around to giving non-certified school employees a choice of either a 4% raise or an increase to $15 per hour, whichever is greater, which is a nice step for the bus drivers.
Wow, yeah.
The people the teacher aides, whatever else. So that's a good step, and that to be applauded. They gave the rest of the state employees a 3.5% pay raise. They said state retirees will receive an additional 1% on top of the COLA, which is built into their cost of living index, which is built into their money every year. So that would bring them up to 4% for a raise that particular year. They were actually smart enough to take $1 billion of this budget and put it aside and say, this money is for cost overrides as inflation's out of control and we start projects and we know they're not going to finish at the same cost. So we're putting $1 billion aside to help cover those costs so there's really no shortfalls, which is the right thing.
With a B?
With a B.
Wait a minute, what was the budget again?
$29.2 billion with a B.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood you because I was like, okay, so 27, I thought it was 27 million and there's only 10.5, which means that every citizen in North Carolina chipped in $3.
That would be nice, but not realistic.
That's again, coffee.
Okay, you need coffee. They took $32 million and put it into school safety grants, plus another $15 million for additional resource officers, specifically aimed at the elementary and middle schools. So they're they're doing their best to make safety for people as best they can. They actually went out and they spent another $3.9 million to cover the copays for students that qualify for reduced lunches. If you don't know what that is, kids can apply for free or reduced lunch at school. If you're at a certain income, you get free, and it's just paid for by the government. Reduced means that you pay some nominal fee, 25, 50 cents, to get your meal. And what they've said is no. Basically, everybody who qualifies is going to get a free lunch. We'll provide the additional dollars for that, which is nice for the kids. Big thing is the Opportunity Scholarship Program will be expanded, and they'll raise income eligibility levels to about 200% of the average required for free or reduced lunch. So there's a number for free or reduced lunch. If you're at 200% of that number, you can qualify for Opportunity Scholarship Aid. Now, what that is, the Republicans started this, and very frankly, the Democrats and Governor Cooper are not a big fan of it. They're allowing poor students to apply for this scholarship, and they will be given, I believe the number is $8,000 or $9,000. I think it's about $9 by now, and they can take that money and shop for the school of their choice, and they can go to a private school or a public school, and they can take their $9,000 and go there so they can find a school that best fits them. Or if they're in a school that's not working real well for whatever reason, they can take that money and go find a school that better fits their needs. And that's available. There was $100 million or more of it last year. So that's available by application. And it's only for people who, the rich can't get a handle on this one. This is for the poorer kids to give them some choices. And they've lined up a number of private schools who will take that full $9,000 as their tuition.
And they're not even required to be a boatswain or a rower?
No. None of the above. So this actually gives kids a chance to get out of certain situations, to get into a school, or even get to a school that better suits their needs. Suppose they want to train in some area that they don't have in their area, but if, they can take that money and go to a private school or go to a special school to get that training that they need for the future, which is great.
That's one of the things that I still, when I worked at Military Channel, we did a show called 50 Years Ago Today, all about World War II. And one of the things that kept coming up with my producers and I in conversation was the amount of opportunities that World War II gave to impoverished people throughout the country. I mean, how many people came from like some backwater Idaho or, you know, some country bumpkin farming guy, and the next thing you know, he's a fighter pilot ace. He would have never worked on an airplane, never been around an airplane until he got into the military, and as a result of his military service, he's now exposed to and trained in areas that he would have had no opportunity of previously. And it seems that other than the military, we have removed that from the rest of our educational process.
That's true, and don't forget, there is money for veterans that come out of that, and they can actually get additional training and funding to go to college, you know, and pay the bills. I know when I came off active, for example, I was able to qualify because I was a military veteran, and I was able to pick up enough money to help me get my 2 master's degrees. And that works at the bachelor's level for training for an associate's degree, or even for a specific certificate that says you're qualified to do something. And all that's out there through the Veterans Administration for the soldiers that do it. So that was out there that was never done before, and it did a great deal to change America. And you're absolutely right.
I guess part of my question is, or comparison, is that we have more opportunities now, whereas it used to be just the military would give you those exposures. And now we seem to have some opportunities here, or at least this sounds like a plan that would give access to a greater body of experience than you would get, say, in an inner city school where your exposures are going to be limited. You can't go to the airport. You can't participate in marine biology or whatever may be interesting.
Well, the other thing with that, and you tie that to the fact, and by the way, they have almost $151 million sitting in that on an annual basis for kids to qualify and get that money to go to the school of their choice, which is great. But when you speak along that, the schools have started to get smart again as far as the fact, you know, when I went to school, and I'm sure when you went to school, the answer was everybody should go to college. Yep. You had to get your college degree. You know, there's a reality that some people will do better without going there and go into, especially if you can work with your hands. There's nothing wrong with going out and, you know, getting a job that pays well and working with your hands, and sometimes you're more successful. But the schools have started going back there again. There's a lot of links between the schools and the 2-year schools, the associate schools, where while kids are in high school, they can take courses in welding. They can take courses in electrics. They can take courses in plumbing and in carpentry, boat building, working on repairing computers. Their kids can graduate high school with sometimes as much as 30 to 40 college credits ready to roll.
Whoa.
Areas that they want to work with. So they can become a sophomore, or if they're less than that, maybe a second-year freshman with their courses done. And all those courses are free. They're picked up by the district. But that's out there now, and every district is tying itself to the local community college. You know, I know in Brunswick we have BCC, and I know in New Hanover they're working with Cape Fear Community. And those kids can get those courses for nothing, and then they can transfer to finish their degree at those schools. And that's a big step, because they're starting to realize that college is a great thing to go for, but not everybody needs or wants college. And if you have the ability to do things with your hands, maybe you don't need it, or maybe you go back. I give you an example of my son. My son, when he came out of high school, wanted to be an auto mechanic. As a principal, he was always putting kids in college, so I also put kids working with their hands. So I could be no different from my own son. So I said, yes, you can be an auto mechanic, but you're going to go to school and get that associate's degree as a Class A auto mechanic. And he went and did it. He became an auto mechanic for a while, then came back to me a few years later and said, Dad, I'm ready to get my degree now. It always works that way.
Dad, I'm tired of working. I'm ready to make money.
Yep. And then he went out and he went back and got a business degree. And with that, he opened up his own business where he's very successful today. So
But it's not an auto garage.
He's better with it. I will tell you what my dad told me. My son will tell you. My dad told me working with my hands and said, "Bill, if you don't work with your brain, you're going to starve to death." But my son looks all the time and says, "Thank God Grandpa was in the gene pool because I picked up all his skills," and he did, and he's done very, very well with it. So I'm very pleased with that. But the point is, there's nothing wrong with going out and getting some advanced training in some specific, be it carpentry, plumbing. They probably will make more money than many of the professionals going out there in the long term. When was the last time you saw a poor plumber or a carpenter?
I haven't. And what's interesting is this is almost like a logical maturity to the AP courses of my day. Like you could take advanced placement courses and you would get high school credit for it. Then when you got to college, you were given, or at least I was given, the option to test out. Meaning passing the AP course didn't automatically exempt me from the college exam or the college course. I just had to test out of those courses.
Right.
But I was eligible to test out on anything that I had taken AP. So I couldn't just test out of, history if I hadn't taken AP history or, opt out of math because I had AP math. Mm-hmm. But this seems to be a lot more that you're actually getting your college education at the same time you're getting your high school education because you're a kid and you don't have the responsibilities that you and I do, trying to make jobs and make ends meet, to take two sets of courses in two different schools.
When I was at... and the smaller schools now have the advantages what we didn't have back then was they have online courses you can take. So they can offer almost anything now in a small school because I know, for example, when I was in Edenton, which is in Juwan County in North Carolina, the whole school was 750 kids. The whole district was 4,000 kids. So it wasn't a lot of kids. It was 2,000 kids. It wasn't a lot of kids.
That's like not even half of our football stadium seating on the home team side.
Yeah. Side note with that, when they first came down to interview for the principalship at the high school, they said to me, we have 750 kids in our school. Can you handle that number? I said, the high school I'm giving up in New York at 1,900. So I think it's not a problem.
Yeah, this is a smooth.
But they were able. I would tell you that in that last class I graduated before I retired out of it. Probably well over 40% of those kids had anywhere between 5 to 30 some odd college credits leaving the school.
Wow.
Okay, so they ran the whole gamut, but a great majority of them were taking the advanced courses through the college, or they took the courses online that we could offer them. But we used to have a teacher or an aide dedicated to one room, and they could go in and you could have 20 computers running 20 different programs for kids that would get them credit. And there's a difference. We talk about the distance learning that was a big fiasco during COVID-19. The difference here was they were in a room with somebody supervising, so they weren't just playing a game and had the television on. They actually had to do the work that was involved. And that's a positive aspect, and it can be done when properly supervised. The other thing was
I think it helps if everybody wants to be there.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. You're absolutely correct.
Because if somebody doesn't want to be there, just cut them out because it's going to ruin it for everybody else who does want to be there. And if they don't want to be there, just say, all right, we will come back to you next year. We will take this same material, and you'll just be held back a year by your own choice. But that's me. I'm just upset enough that it's like a lot of people complaining about things, and it's like, look, the fact that you're still sucking air and have food to eat should be a good start.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Now, back to our little budget. So finish up because we're running. I don't want to keep you here for the whole time.
Oh, the FCC is not on today. They took the 4th off, so we're totally free for all today.
The budget also calls for transferring 2% of the sales tax revenue from the state to the highway fund because they've already estimated, for whatever reasons, I guess lack of driving cost because of the cost of gasoline, the highway fund's going to have declining revenues, and they still need the state does the roads, so they still need the funds to maintain the roads. So they're smart enough to say, we'll take 2% of the state tax and move it over there so that we can continue fixing the roads as necessary, which is a good thing. They took another $14.8 million additional money allocated for mental health resources across the state. They put another $883 million for water and wastewater infrastructure projects, bringing that amount to over the 2-year period to $2.5 billion. They took $300 million to build a new education complex and a governor's office in downtown Raleigh, and to renovate and demolish other downtown government buildings. They also took $5 million to expand broadband access to the underserved areas. So it's $5 million with an M. So I think overall, the budget that was passed by the state legislature, and it's expected to be signed by the governor if it hasn't been signed already, is a good one for us. Again, taxes will continue to drop. Tax rates are going to continue to drop. They've managed to be good stewards of our funds, and they're funding a lot of important funds, and yet they still don't need extra money. I would think that maybe some of our counties, and then Brunswick is an exemption to this, because I will tell you, they have the 5th lowest tax rate in the state for this county. So wow. Our people here do a great job with monitoring dollars. They've actually, with everything going on, keep in mind in Brunswick County, going back to education for a minute, if you graduate a Brunswick County school, or you do homeschooling in Brunswick County, you can go to Brunswick Community College free. Not a dime. You can go there absolutely free to get your 2-year degree, or finish your 2-year degree if you started it through high school. Beyond that, they went out and they lined up a half a dozen 4-year universities, including UNC Penn Group and a couple others, that will accept you to finish your 4-year degree at $500 a semester.
Yeah, I don't remember being able to get a single 3-credit course for $500.
I agree.
And that was in-state tuition for.
Yeah, and that's a phenomenal amount for our kids, and opportunity for the kids here in Brunswick.
But it's not fair. It should be retroactive. I should be able to go back to college right now for $500.
Well, you can. For $500, I'll take you back to college. You just can't do anything. I'll drive you.
See, without the coffee, I left out the whole like safety measure so that I would at least get educated for the $500.
Well,
but at least I get on the campus. I'll take it from there.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get you on the campus. We'll try to keep you out of the campus security office, maybe for an hour or two before you get there. And you and I would probably both be in trouble. So.
Well, at least I would be in the vicinity of a place where I can read books that have been banned by the public library. I mean, there's some J.D. Salinger stuff that I need to catch up on.
Well, unfortunately, banning of books is not a good thing. But at the same token, on the other side of that, some of the books that they're showing our kids are just totally inappropriate.
Well, I can see books like, I'm trying to remember the press, the printing company that was responsible. One of them was called Diary of a Hitman or something like that, and it was actually a step-by-step guide that somebody actually used. And the printing company decided to pay off the author and just say, yeah, we're not going to make this book available anymore. So self-banning as opposed to 1984/Animal Farm banning is a totally different, voluntarily saying what I wrote was inappropriate. I'm sorry, I'm going to remove it. Or
if we support and defend independent rights or individual rights, that's exactly the right way to go.
Instead of telling somebody that, hey, this is your book and we don't like it, so you can't publish it anymore. That's somebody oversight as opposed to the very person saying, hey, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, please don't publish this anymore, as opposed to nobody can read this because the government has declared it to be dangerous. That's almost like Afghanistan type treatment.
I agree with you on most of that. Again, the only exception I have is I do think controlling what young kids see is very important.
Yeah, and the battle there is that fuzzy line between when it's not okay and when it is okay, because they're going to be experienced with it or exposed to it at some point. That conversation needs to happen. Most of the time we're unprepared and it hits us unexpectedly, meaning a child sees something, turns to mommy and says, what is that?
Yes.
As opposed to being proactive, rather. Again, the words are escaping me. And explaining to the child, you are going to see things that are weird. Please don't react. Just come to me.
Well, and the other side of that is also to the schools issue. If there's certain books that are going to be controversial for whatever reason you're doing them, then you need to hold parental meetings, explain it to people. And you're not going to win everybody over, but you can win. Reasonable people will come around if they understand there's a reasonable reason to be there. But if you're throwing certain, I don't believe 5, 6, and 7, 8-year-olds should be heavily involved in learning all about sex. They let them have their childhood.
Yeah, let them learn how to use a spoon without getting it all over the place.
Or decide between a plastic or a paper straw.
Yeah, whether you love or hate sea turtles.
Yep. But they need to be more transparent with what they're doing with any kind of books out there, because what ends up happening is the kid, as you said, the kids come home and say, "What is this all about?" Or, "Here's a picture they showed me today." Mom and Dad go through the roof because it's like anything when you're a parent, you go to the worst case immediately.
Oh yeah.
And then you work your way back. But if you're pre-warned or pre-knowledge about it, and for example, even in the schools when we had health courses where we did sex education back then, there was always an opt-out for a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Parent could have, during that block of time, their child would go someplace else and not be involved. And that's okay, because 99% of the parents took the course. And they discussed everything in those courses.
Yep.
But it's a matter of parental knowledge and involvement and parental rights, because right now the schools are taking the attitude is I can do whatever I want and you have no right, no say, and that's not going to work.
Well, I think that's a little unfair, which is why one of the reasons why I left the School of Education is that the demands placed on the educational system was not balanced with the responsibilities of the parents being involved in their own children's education. So being singled out and being chastised and persecuted for things that we as a body of teachers should not be responsible for. Ethics and morality and things of that nature aren't necessarily subjects of education. Those are subjects of family unit.
Exactly. Perfectly said. And when the school tries to do everything but educate, you have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, there are situations that can be presented, and I remember this in high school, where we had these really weird discussions that made sense afterwards, because we did not, as children at that age, have experience with any sort of political upheaval or any sort of sociological macroverse understanding. So things like Orwell really brought into view the mind shift in authoring books from the 30s through, say, the 50s. That a lot of the hidden messages, I mean, obviously Animal Farm in 1984 aren't terribly hidden, but the idea was that we didn't have these experiences. Now we can have these uncomfortable, awkward conversations in a safe environment with multiple views and start challenging the kids to think in terms of morality and ethics as opposed to 2 + 2. And that was...
and if you do something like what you're talking about, what you're developing is critical thinking, and we're not doing that anymore.
That, I think, yeah, I'm glad that was recognized. I knew critical thinking was part of the mathematics and logic, but the discussions of having awkward conversations in a safe environment seems to be laying the groundwork for critical thinking, including some of those really uncomfortable, like, having a cross-dressing person reading children's books. That seemed to be a little over the top for some people and not enough for others, but if there was an adult base that already had that conversation, then everybody involved would have been better prepared and there would not have been the need for violence and arrest and stupid.
Well, unfortunately, we do stupid much too often.
We seem to do stupid before we do anything else, and that's, I guess, the part in education where, as wanted to be a teacher, I still want to teach because I love students. I just cannot handle unruly children whose parental oversight has been extremely limited, shall we say.
Well, I think what you're talking about is, especially at the high school level, the art of debate is probably the best way to deal with what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, when I used to teach history, I used to take hot topics and divide it into those in favor, those against, and we would have a debate on it, which we set a certain date. They had to come in, and we do the rules of debating as best we could, considering. But
yeah, we used to have entire debate teams. Those are gone.
What I used to drive them crazy with, TK, is I would assign you to debate the opposite side of what you believed.
I mean, that's the way it was supposed to be done, to really mess the kid up and make them think not only on their side, but to look at the opposing view with greater depth and a more open mind.
No one said you had to agree with it, but at the same token, at least you had to understand why the people believe what they did, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen.
I agree.
Right, and it's sort of like what my dad said about, like anytime you bruised yourself or injured yourself, you can cuss all you like, it's still going to happen. It's going to hurt. Your acceptance or improvement or, your reaction is completely voluntary.
But, I would see what you're going to see right now is a pushback in all these districts they're going to be electing parents who are going to fight for more parental control. And I don't disagree with that. And just so that we understand that sometimes there are, we have to get people to understand that sometimes there are topics which have to be discussed in schools for education purposes, and not everybody's going to agree with them or take the same side with it, and they shouldn't.
Now, does that supersede the need for parental approval? Because at least they're involved, they're aware, but you still have to broach the topic and have those awkward conversations at some point in their life.
I agree, but the question is going to be what the topic is, not so much parental improvement. Because for example, if you're debating the Vietnam War, you don't necessarily go back to parental approval for that one. No. But if the other hand, I'm going to be talking to you about abortions up to day of birth, I think that needs to go out. This is the discussion that's going to have. Just be aware that X, Y, and Z, and if you really want to opt your child out, then you need to let them do that.
But that would be almost...
great majority of kids, especially high school, will force their parents not to opt them out because they want to be there. They want to either hear it, or they don't want to be away from their friends. One of two choices.
Man, yeah, and that's a little unfair. I mean, at some point, it should be like, okay, if you're not going to let your child participate, then you need to get your butt in this chair and explain to us why it is you're having that problem. But that's me living in utopia. And Utopia has coffee.
Utopia has coffee, and you don't have coffee, so you're not into Utopia.
Not this morning. I'll get there. I might have to climb over some bodies to get to it, but I'll get there.
I just want you to feel bad because I'm sipping the last drink of my cup of coffee in front of me.
Oh, that's fine. I'll be bringing chocolate to the next meeting.
Okay.
Speaking of which, you guys do have a meeting tomorrow, yes? Another great show. I know you're going to be there for the first time in, 6 months, 8 months?
Well, actually, 4 misses because of trip and being ill. But, and we're going to be doing some of what we talked about today, and with the budget, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court rulings last week and, looking at both sides of the issue and how people feel about it. Should be an interesting talk show. It's just Dan is going to be off this week, so we're not going to have him. So it's only going to be Mary and I.
Yep. And you have guests yet? I know you have...
We're not having guests.
Sir?
We're not having guests on this show.
Uh-oh. This is going to be just an arm wrestling match between you and Mary.
That's the way it's going to be. We're going to be talking about issues this time. And then I believe... and then when Dan comes back next week, we're going to go into small business, is it the effect on the economy, et cetera, et cetera. There'll be guests there, but I think this one's going to be an easy run. It's only going to be Mayor and I talking. And maybe if Greg wants to get involved, we'll talk.
Now, my question about the small business, are there any left?
Yes, there are. There are some, but they're fighting to stay above water. And, you look at some of the stuff out there, people are starting to blame the businesses for why the prices are going up. Well, they still have fixed costs.
Yeah.
And they have to pay those bills, and so they have to raise prices to make a profit because, if you're a large corporation, you still have employees to pay, things along this line. If you're a small mom and pop shop, you still got your rent, you got to pay your own bills, you got to pay for these stuff you're coming in the door. And if you're only charging 5 cents and it's costing you 6 cents, it's not really a good deal.
And all of that is why gas is so expensive. Wait. I mean, I understood business a little bit from school, that it's like supply and demand, and if your CEOs are making billions of dollars in bonuses, chances are it's not a government-driven price gouge. It's going to be profiteering. So the gas prices right now have absolutely nothing to do with the administration, either previous or current.
Well, they do have something to do with the administration.
There's influence, but certainly not the jack in gas prices that's been in the last 6 months.
Well, I would think that they are. The only complaint I have with that is with the way they do the gas jumps. You know, if a barrel of oil goes up $1 today, the gas goes up $1 tomorrow, you won't see that barrel of oil hit the area for another 6 months.
Right, because they bought it a while back.
Yeah, either that or it's got to be delivered, it's got to be processed, it's got to be sent to you. You're not going to see it for a while, but they raise or lower prices daily based on what that barrel of oil is costing, or weekly anyway, when they change their weekly prices based on the change. And I think that's just a little bit ridiculous. But again, when you shut down pipelines, you cut down our drilling, and you start importing oil, the prices are going to go up. If you start looking around the world what costs are, we're probably one of the, except for Europe, one of the most expensive places to buy gas in the world.
Well, if we lived in Saudi Arabia, it would just flow from the faucet next to the water.
Yeah, but all the oil-producing countries obviously have the best. But just think about it: when we were producing enough oil to export, so was our money here was, our price for gas was dropped tremendously because we had the money to do it. We could make our own oil, and we were independent. When we shut down pipelines, when we shut down drilling, and they say we have 200 years worth of fossil fuels around here between natural gas and the actual oil to supply our country for 200 years. Side note, long-term thought. All wars are generally started because of resources. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's natural. Sometimes it could be a warm water port, like in the case of Russia. It could be natural minerals you have, like the Ukraine has got food. It's just chock full of minerals or metals that they want. So wars are started for control of that. Well, let's play this out a little bit. The United States stops using all its resources to produce oil, and the rest of the world goes dry. Where are they going to get the oil from? And if we don't want to pump it, they're going to do something about it, aren't they?
I have a feeling we would lose Alaska.
Well, they would let it melt anyway, but that's fine. There used to be the old joke out of Texas, Alaska's twice the size of Texas, and then they say, but what happens after it melts? So, that's to be determined.
It's like watching I cannot remember the species, but it's a very, very fluffy cat, and it seems like a really massive animal until it gets wet. And you realize it's just this little tiny mouse-sized cat with like 3 feet of hair.
Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. I don't know that. They're no fluff balls.
And that would be Alaska in the wintertime is fluffed up. And then once it's all melted.
Winter, though, you still got to remember that Alaska gets in some parts to minus 80 degrees.
I don't need to forget that. I don't need to remember that. I don't need to know that. I am not going above the Mason-Dixon line anytime in the near future that I can tell. Certainly not above the Tropic of Capricorn. Or Cancer. That's just not going to happen.
So I guess you're going to be Alaska is safe from your attack.
I have traveled this country from coast to coast, north to south, and I really hope that this is the last chapter.
Have you done this? You're talking about the 48? Have you gone up to Alaska?
I have not gone to Alaska. I have not gone to Hawaii, but I have done shows one way or another in, I believe, every 48 state, lower 48 states.
Ooh, congratulations. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, well, it's part of the job, right? Which is part of the excitement. Of course, most of what I saw in America was the gas station bathroom, so I can rate those on a scale of 0 to 2. With many left over, yes. Which I guess afterwards, right, looking back on it, it's like that was a unique opportunity to see the common infrastructure. Like one area might be more Kroger than Harris Teeter or Lowe's, or they might have Stuckey's instead of White Castle, or whatever these small changes are. But you get a greater sense of their geolocation mentality. Like if you're in the desert area, they treat water differently than when you're, say, in the Pacific Northwest. Their relationship with water in a restaurant is different. In a desert, you have to ask for your water. In the Pacific Northwest, they will hose you down on the way in the door.
Yeah, and they're also not going to give you the largest glass of water either.
No.
Because they are.
So, some of those relationships I think were really, really eye-opening. So when it came time to work in advertising for different markets, I had a better understanding of why my producer wanted these changes and how I could be more effective in those changes for a market in the Northeast, in the Southwest, in the Central Plains, in the Northeast New England area, or in the Florida crazy people area.
Yeah, well, there's, you're basically looking at the fact that we do have a common language sometimes. Sometimes I don't even know about that. But
common language, divergent dialects.
Yes, and divergent subcultures all across the country.
Oh, yeah. And when you're working in a heavy metal band, that core is going to remain kind of constant, right?
That's true.
But when you go out, like here's the best example, and Chastain, the guy that I was touring with on the first national tour, pointed out that in some of the places we could stop and eat and not have any problem. And actually get some, like, hey, what band are you with? And a little bit of conversation. There are other times, like, for example, I believe we were in Oklahoma or Kansas, and we stopped in a diner to eat, and everybody in that place had a problem. They didn't want our long hair in their food. They didn't want these hippie-looking, and it's like, guys, you don't understand. We are bringing a financial impact to your environment. When we come, people bring money to see us, and they spend money in your building to buy stuff that are... It's like getting mad at the trucker because he doesn't wear the shirt you like. It was just really bizarre.
Yeah, but people sometimes, again, they don't see how it directly affects them. So that's their turnoff there. And I know because I have relatives in Oklahoma, and I give you a great story. When my daughter was just 14 and we went out to visit, we had 10 uncles and aunts out there. My mom was from there. And they used to have big Sunday dinners. And the rule was the men all sat first. Then when the men were done, the kids and the wives sat down to eat. Well, my daughter, who was raised to be dependent, Gus, had a real problem with not being able to sit with the guys. And we had to take her outside and kind of explain to her, when you're in Rome. And it didn't work. She still came in, plopped herself down next to one of her uncles, and said, "That's it. I'm having breakfast. I'm having lunch with you." So, yes, the little local mores are interesting, and there they just accepted the fact that men ate first, and when the men were done, then the women and kids could go.
And I hope she smashed that patriarchy.
Oh, there was no doubt about that. She was raised from birth to be her own person. And sometimes that was a real treat as she was growing up, because trust me, it was not always easy.
I can imagine. I mean, that had to be a lot of answering the school system as to, okay, what did my daughter do this week?
Yep. I will give you her third grade story, which is, again, my daughter. I got a call to come into school one day because she had a problem with a teacher. So I went in there, and the assistant principal sat me down, and they said, I said, "What happened?" I said, "Well, your daughter was very, very rude to such and such a teacher." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, she called her teacher a chicken." So I looked at her. And first of all, I'm not really overexcited. I was working in an inner city school at the time, so the fact that someone called someone a chicken was not earth-shattering to me at this point.
Yeah, that was pretty gentle.
You know, where I come from, mother was an adjective for school. So, you know, I said to him, I turned to the teacher, and I turned to my daughter and I said, did you call him a chicken? She goes, yep. I said, why? He goes, because he called me a turkey. I looked at the teacher. I said, did you call her a turkey? He said, yes, I did. So then with my usual bad sense of humor, I said, so you called me in because of this foul language?
Oh, Bill, yeah, no.
I did.
You had to bring the dad jokes all the way into, wow.
It was perfect. So we ended the meeting rather quickly, and she went back to school, and we had a little discussion about a little more respect. But, you know, as her answer at third grade was, you got to give it to get it, kind of speaking.
And she learned that one right off the Republican bench.
Well, actually, she is a Republican. That's true.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you know, there's some law and order and personal responsibility in all of these issues. And to be the first one to say, yeah, I called you a chicken, I ain't hiding from that.
Nope,
well, what's beautiful is that she did not volunteer the reason until asked.
Well, I'm not sure whether they asked her or not before.
Of course not. Because they just went with what the teacher told them, much like, you know, this gun thing and this abortion thing. All you got to do is say, oh, Bobby, I don't like Bobby. He's got a gun. And that's what it was. It's like the teacher's like, I don't like her. She called me a chicken. Yeah.
That's pretty on. And she was her definitely, must be her mother's daughter. Because her father.
That is classic.
It is, but it was fun. Anyway, I'm going to go back and take care of my wife for a little bit. It was great talking to you, sir.
Hey, thanks for coming in this morning. Have a great 4th of July. And
I will see you tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, and there'll be more of you and a bigger screen.
I'm not even touching that with a 10-foot pole?
Yeah, because you're in a little screen on a screen inside the screen on the stream.
Okay.
Then tomorrow you will be in full glory.
I see you in the middle. Every time you speak, this little ray comes out all around you. So it's like God is talking.
That's my aura.
Yeah, your aura is there. I'm going to leave that one alone because it is a family show.
Well, I appreciate that. That leaves me some sense of respect at the end of the day.
Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you again.
Thank you. And with that in mind, I'm going to let Bill go, and I'm going to go get myself a cup of coffee. So if you hear some dead air here in a minute, please don't get too terribly upset. That's just me trying to recaffeinate myself. It's been a long weekend. I've had great gigs all weekend long, you know, and 2 hours sleep and back on the air. So you can't get too mad. And if you are that upset, I guarantee you, I will give you back your money. Everything you invested in listening to The Asylum will be refunded to you gladly. All right. Don't go nowhere. The Asylum will be right back after these messages. Don't go nowhere.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Lee Nails, located at 4956 Long Beach Road, Southport, is the place to pamper yourself. Steve and his staff of 5 are trained to do everything. They offer manicures of every kind. Pedicures include the deluxe, the special, the royal, the calming mud mask, and therapeutic wax dip. Other services include skin treatments and waxing. Lee Nails, open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 7, and Sunday, 11 to 5. Appointments and walk-ins welcome. Oh, but wait, they are having a special. Hurry in before June 16th to get 20% off. Lee Nails, 910-457-0837.
Happy 4th of July, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Turning a bit unsettled later this afternoon as our high temperatures climb into the upper 80s to the low 90s away from the coast. Middle 80s along the immediate coastline with a moderate risk for rip currents for the eastern and those southern facing beaches, so allow for caution if you're headed out to the beaches today. But as we head into the afternoon hours, that'll be our best chance to see scattered showers and thunderstorms developing, with heavy downpours and lightning expected. As we head into the late evening hours, just in time for the firework displays, expecting dry time as our temperatures drop down to the middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
Folks, the sad truth of it is most of what we're seeing in the news cycle is just noise, and it's recycled noise at that. Nothing informative, nothing that actually helps us discern the times that we live in. That's why we started doing Heard Tell. Every morning right here on Big Talker Network, 7 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m., we talk and discuss the issues of the day, culture and politics with knowledgeable guests, no yelling, no caterwauling, just grown folk talk about the issues that matter. Join me, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning for Heard Tell. Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Welcome back to the Asylum on the 4th of July. Oh yeah, we're celebrating lots of fireworks here, none of which are incendiary in nature, of course. Anyway, please visit the BigTalker.live website, the official website of Big Talker Network. Download the Android and iOS devices so you can take the Big Talker anywhere and everywhere you want to be, perusing all of our phenomenal content at your fingertips. That's right. Like I say, you can listen live. You can send us an email with any compliments, questions, concerns, critiques, or concerns, or what are we? Comments, questions, concerns, compliments, or critiques. There you go. Because we can't improve without your feedback. And not Jimi Hendrix-like feedback, but more, can I get your feedback on this? Anyway, it's 9:30, another 25 minutes left of my insanity. From this great conversation with Bill Moore, we will have probably Andrew on in the morning. He's right now having a great time with his daughter, whose new bass is quite exciting. I mean, anytime you help a child or a person or a young person, this person is no longer a child. This person is ready to take on the universe and now has an official, really cool sound gear bass with which to do it. And that's the other thing that's kind of cool about the Voice in the Pen project that I'm a part of, which I predict she will be involved in as well, is there's a higher percentage of those who identify as female. I mean, I don't even know how to play safe anymore, because I think they're women. And some of them are young that they might still qualify as girls with cooties. But it's good to see more musicians bucking the traditional pattern of a male-dominated art. But I think that's been true for a long time, that it seemed that women were, in history, artistically, they were relegated to rather minor roles. Writing, I think, was probably the one they were most allowed, I guess, would be the term. I mean, we've as a society, have not been very, what's the word I'm looking for, encouraging of the fairer sex involvement in worldly things. Marie Curie, I think, is probably one of my first examples of, oh yeah, hold my wine, or mimosa, or whatever. Sangria. You get the idea. So, seeing a young woman, developing woman, picking up a bass guitar, and I am looking forward to seeing her in a rock or pop band wailing on that instrument. Because, I mean, you give a kid, it's almost so many different environments, and that's one of the things Bill and I were just chatting about. When you hit a different environment, you hit a different place, the vibe is different, right? So if you talk to a lot of the former NBA players and stars, they'll tell you that, you know, basketball was their only way out. Or football, it was their only way out. Or crime, it was their, oh, wait. And in some places, it's music. It's the only way out. Some of these places, you're either going to play basketball, football, or music. And that's been true for the guys, right? Not necessarily strong for the women. I mean, it's not like there's a WNFL, like there's a WNBA. Well, there's not a women's rock and roll group, right? But they're making it. They're owning it. I mean, we have a few. Usually they were the singers, like Linda Ronstadt, amazing vocalist and musician. But they're, you know, Bonnie Raitt is like the standout. She's not the first. You know, we had Sister Thorpe, right? Rosetta Thorpe. I'm horrible with names. But she's ripping up an SG, man, long before AC/DC ever made the SG famous. So I think the revolution which we are expecting is not the one that we are looking for. Or I should say the one that we should be expecting is not the one that we are currently expecting. Maybe that's more accurate. Right? Because the glass ceiling and all the other, you know, like Katanji, you know, don't... glad you're first, don't be last, don't be the last, or whatever. You know, those ideas are going to take much greater hold, because keep in mind, just in this country, there's 300 million people. There's 10.5 million in North Carolina. And a lot of them are women. A lot of them, I'll say this. There are a lot of them that are not old white men. So all the old white men desperately hanging on to power with every last fingernail and hair follicle that they've got needs to be addressed before they are left with nothing. Right? You have to come up with some sort of plan to save your own sense of sanity, or you're not going to make it. Right? I mean, was it Tolkien talking about the age of man is over? Yeah. The age of humans may be rising, but I don't think that that's going to fully take shape until something happens with the Taliban, for example, places like, or groups like the Taliban, who seem to think that educating women is, you know, beneath them, and a lot of that's going to change. That's where your revolution is going to come in, because enough of these people are going to say, all right, we've had it, that treating our sisters in other countries in ways that we would not treat our own daughters is absolutely reprehensible. So should we be supporting the Taliban and their new government and the new Afghan? No. No. I wouldn't. That whole thing was a quagmire and a mess from the beginning. And the thing is, not only did we fail miserably in our exodus and handling of that situation, we actually brought the poison home. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, the whole reason why we hate the Taliban so much, or we disagree with them so vehemently, is that all of their beliefs are based on religious tenets to which they have subscribed. However, we are not immune to that. There are at least, 7, I believe, maybe even 8 on the current Supreme Court who are judging, who are doing all of their things based on a Christian model. that works for them, right? I mean, Christianity is not the only religion on the planet. So it'll be interesting to see how, some of our, say, Jewish people might be responding to this, right? Because they're looking at us like, first time being persecuted, huh? Is that it? Feeling a little overwhelmed there? Yeah, we did this back in 39. So, if you need some guidance, some assistance, or, maybe just the voice of experience from somebody who's been there, find you a rabbi over the age of 60, and I promise your conversation is going to be incredibly eye-opening. Short of that, we're just going to continue to repeat the same mistakes, and within the next, 4 to 6 years, we will be wearing particularly colored shirts, jackets, shoes, or something to point out to the government what type of person we are, whether we're heterosexual or we're curious or we're criminal or subversive, right? Because I can't tolerate, apparently, a number of people in our current administration, left over from previous, administrations, are incapable of handling any sort of criticisms. But again, most companies, not that America is a company, but most organized groups of any sort want pushback. They want feedback. They want information from which they can improve. Much like here at the radio station, just about every time I start on the air. Whether it's a new show or after a break, contact us. Write us an email. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Because we can't make adjustments if you're not talking to us, right? Same thing in any relationship. If there isn't open communication between both sides using the same language, not necessarily the same, like, Russian and German, but using the same language as in, this is what's important to me. But we can't do that. We just can't seem to get over our own damn selves enough to be effective in communicating on an even keel, on the same table, on the same platform, if you will, group to group. Because while it is absolutely normal for a vast swath of the people on the planet to accept as normal and proper the way women are being treated in Afghanistan by the Taliban, the rest of us are absolutely appalled by this. And we claim human rights violations. Here's how I look at it. If I don't support what it is you're doing, I don't set foot in your building. If you don't believe me, just ask the owner of the Real Cafe why they've not had me in there to do a show. They've asked. I will never go back in that club. Ever. And it's not a matter of money. He's thrown money at me and it's like, no. There is not enough money for me to compromise my own integrity. Not going to happen. Until this person is willing to step up, apologize, own their part of it as to why I will not go into this club. Then we have a conversation. Then we have something to work with. But to sit there and to have committed the heinous front that had occurred, and then to expect me to just step over it for an extra $5, not going to happen. Until you acknowledge what happened and are willing to own it, apologize, and correct for it, I don't ever want to see you again in my life. Same thing with Afghanistan. We should just not participate with them whatsoever. Anything that they want, they had an earthquake, sorry. Hope you have another. Until sometime when you realize that you have made a horrible, horrible, horrible mistake, step the hell down from power and realize you do not know what you're doing. But until that conversation comes down, I don't think we should be participating with a number of these groups of people, including those here in the United States. Yes, we can, you have the right to exist, but you do not have the right to be supported. You do not have the right to be fed, right, by us. I mean, your nonprofit organization is your problem. Your movement is your problem, right? We should be able to choose those who, like helping Ukraine makes sense. They need help. They're on the right side of this. If we really wanted to be on the right side of this, we'd be helping more than we are. Until Russia or other groups that have been supporting Russia come to terms with this, we should not be participating with any of them. But then again, I don't run the place. Probably a good thing. Because there would be a lot more dead people because of the intolerance that I share with many of my fellow Americans. The difference being, I'm not going to act out on it without some sense of sibilance, some sense of conversation. Because it's easy to condemn somebody on a one-way street. But if you don't understand why they're going the wrong way on a one-way street, when you see the bullets zipping by you, it's like, okay, I can forgive them as I pull a U-turn and go the wrong way on a one-way street, because myself don't want to get shot either. There's a lot of those types of mentalities and a lot of those maths that need to happen, where we're basing our decisions on the lowest common denominator, which is actually a pretty sad statement in of itself. And we seem to think that America is unique to this, right? That only in America do people get shot and killed in a shopping mall. No, Russia just bombed a shopping mall in the Ukraine. And all of us are supposed to be okay with it? Oh, that's their problem. They'll deal with it. If we really had the same mentality that we did when trying to save the rest of the world from Germany back in the 40s, we would not be sitting on our ass right now. We would have already leveled the Kremlin. We would have already leveled St. Petersburg, and we would have already repainted all of Kaliningrad. But no, we're going to sit here and bitch about high gas prices and blame President Biden for that, when we have absolutely no understanding how supply, demand, and infrastructure works. I mean, the government only has influence on 18 cents per gallon on a gallon of gas. Everything else, some of the policies may affect what they feel they can get away with when adjusting their prices. But if you want to know where the money for the gasoline is going, look at the bonuses of the CEOs. We've used this as a metric for the ChemWars people. The CEO continues to receive in excess of $10 million a year in bonuses based on how much he does not spend of the company's money, not poisoning the watershed. He's being rewarded for criminal behavior that would have otherwise, in the open market, sent him to prison for life. Because this is attempted murder, really. I mean, if you think about it, if you poison somebody's water supply, you have attempted to murder the people from whom they draw that water. But because they're a company and because they make billions of dollars and their CEO makes $10 million, probably has a house on Bald Head Island, it's okay. Again, Fortune 500 and Inc., right? They tend to make heroes out of criminals, much like the NFL. These types of things need to change, and that's only going to change if we have an effective education system that's going to teach children how to identify the grift. Once we can identify the grift, once the children can identify the grifters lose their power. Now, keep in mind that the MAGA base has an average, the entire United States, right? When you're in media and you're training to be in media, you are taught that your audience has a combined average intelligence of a 7th, 8th grader, right? 12 to 14 years old. And that's it. That's why MAGA works so well so quickly, is you have uneducated people that are easily swayed by fancy or simple little poems or slogans or mantras or whatever you want to call it. Make America great again. Yeah, of course. That's going to be like your dog whistle anthem rally cry that everybody that's uneducated and thinks that they're, hey, Donald Trump thinks of me. Donald Trump's working for me. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit for anybody under him. And until more people are educated to the point that they can understand that their worth is independent of what anybody in administration might be having to say, then they can start thinking for themselves. But again, these sheep who have the, average intelligence of a cannoli are incapable of seeing for themselves the truth. Instead, they were looking for their new Jesus. They were looking for their own personal Jesus, and they found it in Donald Trump. Just like the Taliban discovered their own Jesus, and now they have an entire country. Should that happen here? Are we not in process of that? And we're okay with it. I mean, a lot of what's happening now and a lot of what happened nigh on 70 years ago, 80 years ago. Remarkably similar, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't even go to history then, and I'm even like, damn, that happened before I was born, and I'm recognizing all of those signs right now. Of course, it's a little diluted, and of course, it didn't all happen in the same crunch of time, but a lot of the same elements that led to the European firestorm and 2-3 theaters of war for over a decade, and here we are again. Our education system is obviously not working because our own politicians and administrative personnel are incapable, unresponsive. They're just deaf. And now we got this other guy. He popped up in the news. I thought this was hilarious. I about lost my noodles when this one came across. Come on, pull up my news. Where is it? It's at Tory. I don't even know how the parties work in England. I never wanted to, but apparently one of the Tories, I think that's right. Where's this story? It's hilarious because the picture of the guy's face is just like, what did I do? Oh, come on. Really? I think the guy's name was Parrish or whatever. Oh, come on. This was hilarious. And it was... Oh, come on. I'm just going to have to do this more often and just email news stories to myself. There it is. Neil Parrish. This will be the fun part to end the show with. How's that? Coming from Huffington Post. Neil Parrish's wife chases him with scissors saying snip snap after the tractor porn scandal. This is not a sentence you expected to read on a Monday, is it? By Kate Nicholson. Neil Parrish revealed the peculiar response his wife has to his behavior during a bizarre interview on Monday. Parrish, who stood down as the Tory MP, which I guess is Member of Parliament for Tiverton and Homerton in April, caused a national outcry when colleagues claimed he watched porn in the House of Commons not once, but twice. Talk about doubling down. He later said he was actually looking for tractors when he came across porn the first time, meaning the scandal quickly became known as tractor porn. Dominator, bye-bye. He initially refused to quit even after losing the whip. I'm not sure, but changed his mind as the public response grew louder. Take two. Recounting his messy departure from Parliament, Parrish told ITV's Lorraine Kelly that it was his hugely supportive wife who had persuaded him to leave his post. hugely supportive. She knows I'm no angel, he is quoted. In fact, she chases me around the kitchen going snipper snap, knowing full well which part of my anatomy she's after. Looking slightly taken aback, Lorraine said, okay. She knows what I'm like, he added. Lorraine continued, you must have had to have a very awkward conversation with your wife. You said she knows what you're like. She accepts that, I guess, but that conversation must have been very difficult. He said that his wife has supported him throughout his career in Westminster as she's done so much with me. So naturally, on the morning I decided to resign, it was her advice I took. It was my children, my son and daughter, both very sound advice. And in the end, do you twist and turn, or do you tell lots of fibs, or do you go cleanly? And I decided to go cleanly, he suggested or explained. In an interview with The Times in April, Parrish's wife, Sue Parrish, said she was stunned when she first found out what her husband had been up to. She said it was all very embarrassing. My breath was taken away, frankly. She also said he had never done anything like that before, explaining, no, he's quite a normal guy, really. He's a lovely person. It's just so stupid. He had never done anything like that before. You sure about that? Are you sure about that? He's never done anything like that. Your husband has never seen porn before. He's quite a normal guy. Most normal guys have seen porn. So, what part of this is stupid? Anyway, continuing. She suggested the issue was not going to come between them in their marriage as well, adding, you've got to carry on, haven't you? And of course, the Twitter, is that what the tweet? That's it. In an exclusive interview, this is Lorraine, an exclusive interview with Lorraine, Tractorgate MP Neil Parrish explains his regrets and his wife's reaction after being caught watching pornography, they spelled out the whole word, in the House of Commons twice. Now, what's interesting is I'm not entirely sure, but it looks... So they have what's called a screen, right? It's a huge monitor behind them that when you're watching it at home, you see the video on the screen. I don't know if in this situation they can see what's on that screen while they're in the studio. But yeah, there's a huge TLR Dominator Combine. It's a Dominator Model 76, to let you know, which is apparently what it was he was researching when he was... Anyway, back on Lorraine, Parrish was asked if he felt Boris Johnson should take responsibility for the problems emerging within his own party. Parrish is just one of several Tory MPs who have found themselves at the center of fresh sleaze allegations over the last 6 months. To quote Parrish, Johnson is good on the big things, the vaccines, Ukraine, and seeing down the murderous Russians, the former MP said, but it's about trust and integrity. Parrish highlighted the inconsistencies around what Johnson knew about the latest sleaze claim surrounding former Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher. Pincher has been accused of sexual misconduct, claims which Johnson allegedly knew about before appointing him to government in February this year. This explains the whole relationship between Boris and Trump, right? They're just like, just screw anything. Screw everything that's in your House or Commons or Parliament or Congress or whatever. Who's going to care? Parrish, who pushed for Pincer to have the whip removed on Friday, asked, why tell a fib when you know 24 hours later it's going to be refuted? Well, you can always double down like Trump, and get away with it absolutely unscathed. And you get to take your gold toilet home with you. How's that for bonus? All right, so with that in mind, this holiday version of events is over for the day. And, well, tell you what, go to the website, send us an email, and if you're mad enough, I'll even call you up and have you on the air, and we'll hash it out there, all right? BigTalker.live. Thanks for another day. We will see you tomorrow right here on the Asylum. Enjoy. Bye.
Keeping Southport informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Happy 4th of July, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel